One thing that people tend to do with statistics is that they can very easily mislead you with the type of data that's being presented. And there's lots of little tricks that are employed when they want to spin data, whether you're talking about politics, whether you're talking about advertising, or just about anybody who wants to give you some sort of misleading impression about data that they've collected. And they might have various purposes, anything from, you name it, right? You can think of any different situation why somebody might want to, I don't know, spin data. I'll give you an example. Look at the first graph and ignore the second one, right? In that first graph, you see, wow, the unemployment rate as you go from, let's see, we're this truncated graph right here. We start and so let's see, what are we doing? September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So from September to March, we can see, wow, look at those differences, right? And you look at these bars, and wow, it goes up, and it goes down, it goes up, and then it goes way down. And you think, oh my gosh, how horrible for that so many people to be unemployed like that. But then you look at this vertical axis and look at what it says. They say truncated. What truncated? How? Well, this isn't an honest graph because they're magnifying just a very simple section of the graph, right? They're going from 7.0 to 8.0. That's this much of the graph that they're zooming in on. Notice they don't start with 0 here at the bottom left corner. They start with 7. If that graph starts with something other than 0 on the left, somebody's trying to put a spin on that data, right? Somebody's actually trying to emphasize something for whatever reason. But right here, you see that if you were to actually look at the data starting at 0, there's very little data, very little variation in this data rate. We would also call that a uniform distribution, right? We might call this one a little skewed, but this is definitely uniform distribution. And our honest data should show a vertical axis in a bar chart that starts at 0 and doesn't skip heights at all, right? So be very wary when you read a bar chart, what you're looking at that vertical axis. It makes a difference. Here I'll show you another one. Last year's housing, right? The number of homes sold last year is going to double. So they show a house where, right, they double the size of that, right? And they show this big, huge house as compared to the little house. Well, what's wrong with this? Well, if we're really honest, our graph of our doubled production would just double the area that we see here in this little house, right? So if we wanted to double its production, we might draw a graph of another house on top of it and say, see, it's going to double, right? This isn't a very good house, but you get the idea, right? Okay, so if we want to double, we might be honest and say that's the case. No. What this does is it gives you 1, 2, 3, 4 times as much, right? So this is actually going to be quadrupling, and it's a way of misleading somebody who's reading this data because they're looking at data that is being, well, it's just not honest, right? And they do this all the time with data we call pictograms. So be very careful when you read this kind of graph because it can be a little misleading. All right. Thanks a lot. See some Excel examples coming up for you guys.